My son was the most sought-after secret dance teacher in our North Korean border town. What the children of wealthy officials came to learn, cash in hand, was BTS choreography from South Korea. Then one night, the secret police raided us. Every party official's child danced their way out the back door and went home. My son was the only one left bloodied and headed for an execution ground. Friends, in North Korea, it isn't the size of your crime that sets the price of your life. It's your family's power. But what saved my son from that firing squad wasn't money, and it wasn't connections. It was one small USB drive hidden under our floor. Because of the secret on that drive, I watched North Korean officials tremble in front of me for the first time in my life. This is the story of a father who had to make a deal with those men, with his own life on the table. If this story matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. It was the mid-2010s. My wife and I sold frozen potatoes at the Haesan Jangmadang, the open-air markets, where ordinary North Koreans scrape out a living. Winter in the north runs long, much longer than down south. The cold reaches your bones. Corn porridge, every meal. That was our life. Then my son started putting money on the table. Chulsu was 20. He spent his days buried under a blanket in the corner of the room. And suddenly, there were crisp $100 bills and Chinese yuan in front of us. Father, Mother, no more corn porridge. Buy some meat. Tomorrow, I'll get Mother a warm padded coat from the market. My stomach dropped to my feet. A forestry worker's family never sees money like that. Not in a lifetime. I was certain he'd stolen it. I roared at him, the way only a father can. What came out of his mouth made me doubt my own ears. In a back alley of the market, in a pitch-black basement storehouse, with barely any electricity, he was gathering the sons and daughters of party officials and Donju the new merchant, rich and teaching them to dance to South Korean music. BTS. Father, these days in Pyongyang and here in Hyesan, a Kedar's kid who can't do South Korean idol dances gets treated like a fool. The videos come in on al-e sticks. 1 month of lessons, and they hauled in dollars by the bagful. It was insane. Getting caught doesn't mean a labor camp. Under the reactionary thought and culture rejection law, he'd be shot. 3 generations of his family would vanish into a political prison camp and rot there like animals. I slapped him across the face and told him, "You'd ended that night, but poverty does something to a man." That evening, I chewed the pork he'd bought with that money, hidden from my wife. And I'm ashamed of what I was thinking. If he doesn't get caught, this could buy bare bitter medicine for my mother. She'd been coughing for years. That thin sliver of relief, that shame of being poor. I never imagined it was pushing my family into hell. There was no warning. Middle of the night, Group 109 the squad that hunts illegal foreign videos raided the basement. Someone had informed on him. A neighbor got word to me. I ran out with my shoes half on. By the time I got there, the place was chaos. And from the corner of the alley, hiding, I watched something I will never be able to forgive. Minutes earlier, they had all been dancing to the same South Korean music. Now, the daughter of the state security deputy director and the son of the customs chief were being quietly walked out the back door. The agents put them in a black Mercedes and sent them home. Only my son was dragged out, like a dog with boots on his back. They call it cutting off the tail. The senior officials need it. Their children's crime to disappear. So they picked the boy, with no money and no connections, named him the ringleader, and planned to stand him in front of a firing squad as an example. The next day, I spent everything we owned bribing a guard for one visit. What I saw through those bars no father should ever see. One day, his fingernails were gone, torn out. The beatings had swollen his eyes shut. Blood ran off his lips as he pulled himself against the bars and mouthed one thing. "Father, it hurts so much." He gasped for a long while. Then he forced his lips to move one last time. "Father," under the floor. "De al. Al-i. Find it, please." His head dropped, and that was all. I had no idea that one small drive was about to decide everything. I came home and howled like an animal. I was tearing at my own hair when something came back to me. Something he'd said days earlier, half boasting, in passing. "Father, those cadre kids I teach, in case I get caught someday." And they all pretend they never knew me. I filmed them. Every one of them. Dancing, carrying on, Chinese a cell phone. It's all hidden on an al-i. That's my lifeline. My insurance. I started digging under the floor mat like a madman. Fingernails splitting, blood on the dirt. And then it came loose. A thumb-sized USB drive, wrapped in layer after layer of black plastic. I closed my hand around it, and something in me turned red. So my boy gets shot for nothing, and you sleep warm in your house, with your feet stretched out. If we're going down, we go down together. 1 in the morning, the next night. 2 bottles of cheap Chinese liquor, bought on credit at the market, and that drive pressed against my chest. I walked alone to the 2-story mansion of the deputy director, who had taken Churso. He came to the door in his nightclothes and looked me up and down like I was an insect. I dropped to my knees right there on his entryway floor, but what came out of my mouth wasn't begging. "Comrade Deputy Director, I don't dispute my son's death. He committed a crime. A crime deserves punishment." My hands shook as I set the drive on his table, but I don't believe it ends with my son. Everyone who was in that basement is on here, your daughter included. His eyes moved. The arrogance drained right out of them. The day my son's life ends, this goes out into the world. Then it won't be Terso's problem. It'll be a problem for every face on this drive. That's when he finally looked me straight in the eye. His face had gone gray. My madness broke in. He put his hands up. Before dawn, Terso was dumped in front of our house, like a bundle of rags. Released. In 2 days, an inspection team comes down from Pyongyang for illegal video cases. Be off Korean soil before then. Quietly. If you're not, I'll come find you and kill you. That was his last warning. Friends, we left my mother. She has dementia and my wife behind in that house with nothing but tears, and we ran for the Amnok River. What the world calls the Yalu. The November wind coming off that river cuts like a blade. Torture had broken Chosu's ankle. He couldn't walk. I lashed him to my back with a carrying strap and pulled it tight. The moment my foot broke through the skim of ice, the pain shut up, like my toes were being cut off. But his breath was hot against my neck, and that kept me moving. Halfway across, water up to my chest, the searchlights came. North Korean border guards, sweeping the surface, hard and fast. Then that sound, the click of an AK being charged, carrying across the water. My heart stopped. I sank until the ice water was at my throat, and held still. I clamped both hands over my son's mouth, and prayed to the night sky. Heaven, don't let my family's tears go to waste. Spare this boy, just this one. If someone has to be shot, shoot me. The lights passed over us. A miracle. We made the Chinese side, Yanbian, and met the ethnic Korean broker. We'd arranged in advance. The relief lasted about a minute. He didn't take us to a safe house in the mountains. He took us to a run-down warehouse in the middle of town. and threw a bundle of bright red cloth in my face. Old man, the Chinese police are hunting defectors. Right now, with their eyes wide open. Truck cargo hold? Apple crates? They'll sniff you out. You want to live? Put this on and don't argue. I unfolded it and couldn't get a word out. It was one of those blinding red sequined dresses Chinese women wear for Guangchang Wu, the group dances, that fill public squares at night. Then he shoved the cheap red lipstick and a compact of heavy powder at me. That's right, a worn-out man past 50 and a 20-year-old boy, still bleeding from a state security beating, had to become big-boned Chinese aunties to stay alive. My rough hands shook as I smeared red lipstick over my son's split, stitched mouth. I painted blue shadow on his swollen eyelids. We looked at each other, hideous, ridiculous, and laughed, because there was nothing else left to do. Behind that laugh sat tears with blood in them. We slipped into the back of a tour bus, full of Chinese dancing women, exactly as the broker said. We were just past Shenyang when the brakes screamed, and the bus lurched to a stop. 2 Chinese police officers came up the steps, automatic rifles over their shoulders. Of all the weeks, Kim Jong-un had ordered a nationwide crackdown to force defectors back across the border. My ribs felt like they'd crack from the pounding inside my chest. One officer, sharp-eyed, stopped in front of the 2 biggest women on that bus wearing the heaviest makeup. He looked us over, tapped my shoulder with his baton, and barked in Chinese. He wanted identification. That much was obvious. Speak Korean. And we were finished. Neither of us knew a word of Chinese. The sweat came off me like rain. This is where he dance, I thought, and started to shut my eyes. Then my son stood up. He walked out into the narrow aisle, pulled out the Chinese phone the broker had given him, and turned the dance track up, as loud as it would go. And there, in that cramped aisle, with cracked ribs from the beatings, he began to dance. Friends, picture it. That fast, razor-sharp BTS choreography from the south, thrown down by a broad-shouldered auntie in a red sequined dress, with lipstick caked on her mouth, dancing like her bones didn't matter. The real auntie stared. Then they were hooked. How? How? Good, good! Clapping and cheering. A few couldn't sit still and got up to shake their hips along with him. In seconds, the bus turned into a rolling village dance hall. He gritted his teeth and held on through the last move. The music stopped. He caught a seat handle and slid to the floor. The bus filled with applause. The aunties laughed and clapped. Even the officer, furious a minute earlier, let out a laugh and waved his hand. Go on. The bus pulled away. The ID check never happened. Forgotten. My son watched the checkpoint shrink in the window, then covered his face with both hands and cried without a sound. A boy who nearly died for dancing to South Korean music had just been saved by it. I wrapped my arms around that bruised back and cried with him. After that came the jungles of Laos, thick with snakes. Then a detention center in Thailand. Then this warm country. All of it feels now like a dream I had on a summer night. 5 years have passed since we settled in South Korea. The boy they dragged toward the execution ground, covered in bloodworks. As a choreographer at a good-sized dance studio in Seoul, he dances what he loves, out in the open, standing tall. No bolted door to hide the sound of South Korean music, no bribes to state security, no fear of being taken in the night. Just this bright, free country. Sometimes I go watch him perform along the Han River or in the streets of Hongdae, sweat running off his face. And the other version of him surfaces 20 years old, one candle burning, in a damp Hyesan basement, dancing without making a sound. My eyes still sting. Friends, this ordinary day, young people walk in the streets, dancing, singing is a miracle to someone north of that border. A mere father had to gamble his life on a frozen river to reach. I hope you'll remember that once in a while. That's my story for today. My mother is still in Houston with her dementia. My wife is still there, crying day and night. Under this southern sky, I pray that reunification comes and that they get to watch their grandson dance just once. This has been Escape North Stories. If today's story meant something to you, please subscribe and hit like. Thank you for watching.